So, in the time that we've had our conversations, if people are interested, they can find another conversation we had about, more thematical disinformation debunking and methods and perspectives you have on that in the description and on screen. But one of the things that obviously happened was the bill passing, $65 or so billion being passed, and we are generally seeing a, shall we say, relaxation in certain restrictions that NATO, the United States particularly, has had over Ukraine's usage of certain equipment in certain ways. First question, sort of related to that, is how do you feel about it? It's the right thing to do. Obviously, after yesterday, probably is. But second, sort of, they're kind of coupled together. But we have seen a significant rise in cross-border strikes by the Ukrainians in and around Belgorod. Um, you know, I'm very curious for your perspectives on that, and if you think that that's a bit of a slippery slope or not.
I don't think it's necessarily a slippery slope. Remember, Russia and China, to some extent, were actively involved in shooting down American aircraft in Vietnam, right? And I don't think the Russians or the Chinese ever said, whoa, we can't do this because America might escalate, right? Like that never turned into a nuclear war. That never turned into World War III. And you had Chinese trainers and Russian trainers that were shooting SA-2 missiles at American fighter jets. And supposedly some Russian pilots even engaged in combat with American pilots over Hanoi. They were trainers. They were going to teach the Vietnamese how to fly their jets, but I guess they got a little too hands-on education with that. So that being said, we can't have Ukraine try to fight with their hands tied behind their back. And when people talk about Russia escalating, well, Russia doesn't need an excuse to escalate. They kind of do that naturally, you know? And I think the last thing Russia wants is to get NATO involved. So the whole idea of escalating to the point where NATO gets involved, if NATO gets involved, Russia is in a lot of freaking trouble. I've avoided talking about Ukraine in the sense of win and lose. The war in Ukraine is lose and lose less. Russia's going to lose. Ukraine is going to lose. The question is, who loses less? And if we arm Ukraine and allow them to strike targets inside Russia, Ukraine is still going to lose, but they're going to lose less. And losing less means that Ukraine goes to the negotiating table from a position of strength rather than a position of weakness. That's what lose less looks like, right? So Russia knows that if NATO gets involved, Russia is going to lose. There's not going to be lose and lose less. Russia is going to lose way more, mainly because the U.S. and NATO would take a page out of the first Gulf War. And that would be to conduct an extensive air campaign against units in Russia for weeks or months before rolling in armor and actually kicking them out of Ukraine. And that's just not something Russia wants to deal with. So I don't really see escalation as kind of a valid concern, just because it's within Russia's best interest to keep NATO out of the war.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing that you've said about the lose and lose less. It's something that I try to say, albeit slightly differently. That no one wins from war. It's not a case of win or lose. You don't win as soon as the war starts. Everybody has lost.